There are stories whispered behind palace walls, stories that slip through the cracks of ancient stone and settle into the quiet breath of legends. But none is as dangerously beautiful or as powerfully bound by destiny as the tale of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, two men tied not by blood, not by fate, but by a secret oath that could shake the empire from its foundations. The empire stood on the edge of collapse, though the people did not yet know it. Shadows were lengthening, rumors were rising, and somewhere deep beneath the marble floors of the imperial court, an old prophecy stirred awake, one that spoke of a hidden oath, sealed in blood by two spirits destined to protect the heart of the nation. That ancient oath was never meant to involve humans. But destiny is never neat or polite. It takes who it chooses, regardless of the cost. The night their fates collided, the sky was split open by lightning. Xiao Zhan, a quiet but brilliant strategist known for reading the battlefield like a poet reads emotion, had been summoned to investigate a secret rebellion forming in the western provinces. But as his horse thundered through the rain-soaked forest, he felt something or someone watching him from beyond the darkness. And then, out of the storm, he appeared. Wang Yibo stepped into view like a blade emerging from its sheath, quiet, sharp, and impossibly composed despite the downpour. He wore black armor carved with symbols that only existed in forbidden scrolls. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting not fear but a strange, unspoken recognition. Xiao Zhan drew his sword out of instinct, but Wang Yibo simply raised a hand. "If you attack me," he said softly, "you will break the oath that brought you here." Xiao Zhan froze. "What oath? I made no oath with you." Wang Yibo approached him slowly, the storm swirling around his silhouette as though obeying his presence. He stopped inches away, his voice low. "Not with me," he said. "With destiny." A flash of lightning illuminated their faces, and for a moment Xiao Zhan felt the world tilt. Something ancient stirred inside him, a pulse of energy, fierce and familiar, as though he had lived this moment in another lifetime. Before he could speak, arrows whistled through the storm. A group of masked assassins burst from the trees, weapons raised. Their target was Xiao Zhan. The first arrow should have struck his heart, but it never reached him. Wang Yibo moved faster than the wind, his blade singing through the rain as he sliced the arrow in half midair. The forest erupted into chaos, steel clashing against steel, boots pounding through puddles, and shadows weaving between trees. But in the center of the storm, Wang Yibo moved with the precision of a phantom. Xiao Zhan fought beside him, but even as his sword struck true, his mind raced. Who was this man? Why was he protecting him? And why did his presence feel like the missing half of a story he had never been told? When the final assassin fell, silence washed over the forest. Rain still fell, but the storm felt calmer, almost respectful. Wang Yibo sheathed his sword and turned to Xiao Zhan. "Now you understand," he said. "Your life is tied to mine." Xiao Zhan's grip tightened on his weapon. "Explain." "Now." Wang Yibo looked away for a moment, as though gathering strength. "You and I. We are the oath-bearers, the last of them, bound since birth to protect the empire from the darkness rising within it." Xiao Zhan's breath caught. He had heard fragments of such legends in forbidden records, stories of warriors chosen by fate, their souls linked by an oath written not in ink but in the very threads of destiny. Pairs who shared power, instinct, and an unbreakable connection. But those were myths, or so he thought. Wang Yibo's voice dropped lower. "We were separated at birth, hidden to prevent the prophecy from awakening too soon. But destiny doesn't sleep. The empire is falling, Xiao Zhan. And only the oath-bearers can stop what's coming." Xiao Zhan felt the truth of it settle deep into him, heavy and electric. He didn't know this man, yet every part of him felt drawn, pulled toward the reality they shared. The energy between them crackled like unseen lightning. But he wasn't ready to trust him fully. "So you've been watching me?" Xiao Zhan asked. Wang Yibo nodded. "For years. And protecting me without my knowledge?" "Yes." "Why?" Wang Yibo's gaze softened, the storm's reflection shimmering in his eyes. Because your death would mean my own. The world stilled. For a moment, the rain seemed to stop midair. Xiao Zhan felt a shock run through him, as though their shared thread of destiny had vibrated. Come with me, Wang Yibo said. There's something you must see. They traveled through the night, leaving the storm behind as they emerged into a valley blanketed in silver mist. At the valley's center stood a stone arch carved with the ancient symbols of the Oathbearers. The moment Xiao Zhan stepped toward it, the arch began to glow, responding to his presence. This place, he whispered. It's the sanctuary of the oath, Wang Yibo said. Only we can enter. The symbols along the arch lit up like stars awakening at dawn. A warm, golden light wrapped around Xiao Zhan, pulling him forward. The moment he passed through the arch, visions flooded his mind, memories that weren't entirely his. Two newborns placed side by side. An ancient priest whispering a prophecy. Two glowing marks being placed over tiny wrists. Bond sealed. A destiny split. Future waiting. Xiao Zhan gasped as he returned to the present, stumbling forward. Wang Yibo caught him before he fell. You saw it, Yibo said quietly. I saw us. Wang Yibo nodded. Our lives were never separate. We were always halves of a whole. Xiao Zhan stepped back, trying to steady himself. Why wasn't I told? To protect you, Wang Yibo whispered. If the court knew who you truly were, they would have killed you long ago. Prophecies are feared more than enemies. Xiao Zhan let the truth sink in. He had lived decades believing he was a normal strategist, ordinary in origin even if extraordinary in skill. But now, everything had shifted. Wang Yibo reached out, brushing a thumb lightly over a mark on Xiao Zhan's wrist. Xiao Zhan startled. The mark glowed golden beneath his skin. It only responds to you, Wang Yibo murmured. Xiao Zhan looked up. Show me yours. Wang Yibo hesitated, then lifted his sleeve. His mark glowed the same golden light, only brighter when Xiao Zhan's wrist neared it. Their marks pulsed in unison, syncing like twin heartbeats. A wave of warmth spread through both of them, strong enough to make Xiao Zhan inhale sharply. This is the oath, Yibo said. This bond is our power. But their moment of clarity shattered when the earth beneath them trembled. The valley shook violently, as though something massive was forcing its way to the surface. The storm that night had not been an ordinary one. Even after their swords had silenced the assassins, even after the last crack of thunder faded into the dark hills, something heavy still pulsed in the air. It felt as if the sky itself had been holding its breath since Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo crossed paths. Xiao Zhan had spent years on battlefields, facing soldiers, traitors, and warlords, but he had never felt something as unervingly powerful as the quiet that followed Wang Yibo's words. Your life is tied to mine. Those words echoed in Xiao Zhan's chest long after they left the forest. He didn't know if it was fear or fate tightening around his ribs, but something inside him shifted, reshaping every belief he had ever held. Wang Yibo walked ahead silent, but Xiao Zhan could see the tension threaded into his shoulders. This wasn't a man who spoke lightly. Every word weighed something. When they reached the mist-covered valley, the moon broke through the clouds, pouring silver across the stone arch that stood like a sleeping guardian. Water droplets glistened on Yibo's hair, catching the moonlight like scattered stars. Xiao Zhan had to look away for a heartbeat, because something about the moment felt too strange, too intimate. Step forward, Wang Yibo said quietly. Xiao Zhan approached the arch, and the symbols carved on it began to glow as if greeting him. A warm hum vibrated beneath his skin, traveling from his chest to his wrists. What is happening? Xiao Zhan whispered, but his voice shook. It's remembering you, Yibo replied. His voice, low and calm, brushed against Xiao Zhan's nerves. This sanctuary has waited for us since the day we were born. The moment Xiao Zhan passed under the arch, the world exploded into memory. He saw visions, bright, sharp, overwhelming. Two infants lying side by side on a sacred altar. twin marks shimmering with golden light. A priest pressing his hand over their tiny wrists. A vow whispering through the air, binding the two souls. A promise sealed not by choice but destiny. Xiao Zhan staggered forward, breath ripped from his lungs. Yibo caught him instantly, arms strong and steady around him. "It's a lot the first time," Yibo murmured, his voice close to Xiao Zhan's ear. Xiao Zhan pushed himself upright, trying to calm the tremor in his hands. "That was real, wasn't it?" "Yes," Yibo said, meeting his gaze with unwavering certainty. "Everything you saw is the truth of who we are." Xiao Zhan's chest tightened. His entire life, his struggles, his victories, his quiet nights of doubt, they all suddenly felt like fragments leading up to this moment. As if destiny had been guiding him without his knowledge. "What exactly are these marks?" he asked, forcing his eyes down to the golden pulse beneath his skin. Yibo slowly lifted his own sleeve, revealing an identical mark glowing softly in response to Xiao Zhan's presence. When their wrists drew closer, the glow intensified, intertwining like threads pulled together by an invisible hand. "They're the seal of the oath," Yibo whispered. "Two souls meant to balance each other. To protect the empire. To protect each other." Xiao Zhan swallowed. "And if one dies, then the other will fall within minutes." The silence that followed was heavy. Dangerous even. Xiao Zhan wasn't sure what startled him more. The risk of dying, or the thought of Yibo dying because of him. He took a slow breath. "So all this time you protected me because protecting you is protecting myself," Wang Yibo said. "But also, because the bond does more than tie our fates. Ties our instincts. I feel when you're in danger. I feel when something pulls you toward darkness. And I feel." He stopped abruptly. Xiao Zhan stepped closer. "Feel what?" Yibo looked away, jaw tightening. "It doesn't matter now." But the way he said it left the air charged, humming with something unspoken. Before Xiao Zhan could push further, the ground trembled faintly. Yibo instantly shifted into a defensive stance. Xiao Zhan could feel it too, like the valley itself was warning them. "Not yet," Yibo said under his breath. "The sanctuary is testing us." The tremor faded, but the tension lingered. Xiao Zhan touched the stone wall, the carved symbols warm beneath his fingertips. "This place, it recognized me. Immediately. It recognized us both," Yibo corrected. "It's the bond." Xiao Zhan let the warmth from the stone settle into his hand. "This doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like something I've been missing." Yibo's eyes softened, barely, almost imperceptibly. "That's the bond too. It fills what's empty, steadies what shakes. It completes what has been waiting to be whole." Xiao Zhan inhaled sharply, taken aback by the sincerity in Yibo's voice. There was no armor in it, no distance, just truth. He stepped back, his heartbeat louder than it should have been. "So what now?" Yibo moved beside him, the moon painting silver across his armor. "Now we strengthen the bond." Xiao Zhan raised an eyebrow. "How?" "Through trust," Yibo replied. "Through instinct. Through fighting together. Through understanding each other." "Is that so difficult for you?" Xiao Zhan teased lightly. Yibo shot him a sideways look, sharp, but softened by a faint, unwilling smile. "You have no idea." The moment stretched between them, charged with tension neither fully understood. The night felt warmer. The air felt thinner. Xiao Zhan could hear his own pulse too clearly. But fate gave them no more time. The earth split beneath them with a roar. A fiery crack carved through the valley floor, sending shockwaves up their legs. Xiao Zhan stumbled, but Yibo grabbed his arm, pulling him close as the fissure widened. A monstrous shadow erupted upward, eyes blazing with hatred centuries old. Xiao Zhan's sword was in his hand instantly. Yibo's blade gleamed like a streak of midnight. "You ready?" Yibo asked. Xiao Zhan met his gaze, adrenaline burning bright. "I trust you." Their wrists shimmered like stars igniting. They charged together. Golden power exploded where their blades crossed, a brilliant arc of light slicing through the creature's strike. The bond surged through them, instinct aligning their movements like perfectly synchronized flame. Yibo spun in a sweeping arc. Xiao Zhan leapt forward at the exact right moment. Their timing was impossibly precise, as if they had trained together for years. Their energy collided with the creature, forcing it back toward the fissure. The ground trembled violently, but the oath pulsed stronger. "Push!" Ba shouted. Xiao Zhan grabbed his hand without thinking. The moment their palms met, a burst of golden fire roared outward, engulfing the creature in blinding light. Its scream echoed across the valley. And then silence. The fissure sealed. Xiao Zhan gasped for breath, knees buckling. Yibo caught him before he fell, one arm wrapped firmly around his waist. "You did well," Yibo whispered. Xiao Zhan looked up, their foreheads almost touching. "We did it together." Their wrist marks pulsed softly, like a promise. The night held them in its quiet embrace. The bond had awakened, and the empire would never be the same. If you enjoyed this continuation and would love more episodes of The Hidden Oath, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps the story alive.